Hi, everybody. Michael P. Spradlin back with Chapter 16 of The Enemy Above. Thank you all for all of you out there that are following along for your nice emails and comments and all that stuff. I'm glad everybody is enjoying these, and I will keep going as long as I need to. I did want to mention, for those of you who might be working at home on school projects or whatever, I just was going to mention my new book, Close Calls, How 11 U.S. Presidents Escaped from the Brink of Death, which is nonfiction and available wherever books are sold. It's got lots of great nonfiction stories in it about how presidents, whether they were in office or before they were in office, came close to a deathly experience and how they managed to elude and survive. So check that out. Once again, you can also find lots of other authors doing this on Authors Take Action, hashtag Authors Take Action, or hashtag Authors Give Back. And another great hashtag to search is hashtag Books Are Essential. So, because they are. So let's jump right into Chapter 16 of Enemy Above. Major von Dusen could not have been happier. He had found where the Juden were hiding. He was returning with prisoners, and he had no doubt his men would collect more. He had rooted them out, and now the Jews were cowering like rats. He looked at the old woman, sitting on the floor of the half-track's bed. She had done her best to insult him, to belittle the Fuhrer. He looked forward to her interrogation. They would see how proud she was then. Her foolish resistance would not stand against the might of the Gestapo. The other woman was young and strong and would likely be sent to one of the Reich's factories. She would work long hours sewing uniforms or operating machines to build bombs or bullets. When she had been worked to exhaustion, they would send her to one of the camps. He had no idea what would happen to her child, nor did he care. But he did care about reaching the road. The half-track bumped over the rocky ground, turning the Major's stomach. They traveled slowly through the fields until they finally reached the road, where the ride smoothed out. When the engine quieted, he could hear the old woman muttering curses under her breath. He kicked her hard in the leg. "What is the matter, Jude?" he snarled. "Do you have nothing to say now that you are a prisoner, now that you are the property of the Reich?" The old woman spat at him. Spittle flew from her mouth and landed on his boots. He raised his hand to strike her, but stopped when he saw that she was not afraid and stared at him with complete defiance. That was what she wanted. She would take the beatings if it meant distracting him from learning about the rest of the hidden Juden. He would not give her that satisfaction. Yet. But eventually she would fold. Everyone had a breaking point. "Curse all you want, old woman," he said. "Pray to your God. Nothing is going to help you now." To his surprise, the old woman studied him for what seemed like several minutes. Her eyes narrowed and her brow furrowed before she finally spoke. "You can't hide it," she told him. The expression on her face changed from one of concentration to a derisive sneer. "Hide what?" "Your fear." Von Dusen threw back his head and laughed. The old woman glared as she reached over to the young woman, her child, and placed her arm around them. "My fear?" he said. "You believe I am afraid of two women and a child? Are you insane? No, you are not afraid of me. You are a bully and a coward. But you are not afraid of a tired old woman. You, Herr Major, are afraid of losing." "Losing? Losing what?" "Trust me, old woman, I will not lose you, and if you try to escape, I will not hesitate to shoot you down like a dog." Now it was the old woman's turn to throw back her head and laugh. "You Germans, such zealots, so self-righteous. You are nothing more than the puppets of a madman, and you cannot see the truth even when it is right before your eyes. And what truth would that be? You are losing. Your kind always loses. What great failure is befalling the Reich, Jude? Your fear drips off you. You are losing the war. You know it. Your Führer knows it. He sends you out to gather up the Jews. You think us weak and simple, but we know things. The Americans have joined the British, and soon they will gather their forces in the east. The Russian army chases you back to Rhineland with your tails between your legs. And with the Americans coming from the west, where is the mighty Reich? Right in the middle, waiting to be squashed like a bug. And yet your mighty Führer wastes his time and resources rounding up poor peasants and farmers. Does this make sense to you, Herr Major? Shouldn't the Führer be readying himself for the storm that is about to descend upon him? Would that not be a better plan? Ha! I give you credit, old woman. You are not afraid to speak your mind. His eyes narrowed. Perhaps I should take you to the Führer himself so he can learn to tell you so he can listen to you tell him how to fight a war. Perhaps you should. The Reich will not be defeated. Do not worry, Jew. You will not live to see a free day again. The Fuhrer will smash the Americans and the British, and your mighty Russian army has been reduced to women, children, and feeble old men. They will never reach the Rhineland. When the time is right, we will crush them. The old woman raised her hand. Of course. It worked so well for you in Stalingrad. The Russians are not fighting with their strongest men, and still you could not conquer them. And then there are the Americans. You think they will ever stop until you are defeated? They have millions of men to send. Millions. How many does the Reich have left? A few 100,000? How long before your mighty Gestapo is in shambles? Do not try to lie to me, Herr Major. Your eyes give you away. For reasons he did not understand, this bent, beaten old woman with her walking stick in her peasant clothes and her wrinkled face had unnerved him. How did she know so much about the humiliation the Reich had suffered against the communist pigs in Russia? The Reich had been driven out of Africa. The Americans were on the march in Italy, gaining more and more ground. How could she know that the Fuhrer was desperately sending reinforcements to the French coast, building bunkers and gun emplacements as he waited for the imminent invasion? Before he could answer, the half-track slowed. Sergeant Ebertard turned on the searchlight and swept it across the road in front of them. What is it, Sergeant? He asked. I'm not sure, my Major. Perhaps nothing. I thought I spotted something in the road ahead. Perhaps it is one of the Juden from the cave. Stop the truck. Turn off the engine, he ordered, pulling the Luger from the holster at his belt. He used a machine gun when necessary, but nothing felt as good as the weight of his trusty pistol in his hand. The beam of light danced over the road ahead of him and into the fields on either side. Perhaps this time you will catch an infant. Shut up, Jude, or you will regret it, Von Dusen said. Unafraid of his threat, the old woman staggered to her feet and shouted, If you are out there, go to the shadows. They will not A blow to her face knocked her to the floor of the half-track. The young woman screamed and her son began to wail. Van Dusen pointed a pistol at them. Silence! Silence now, or the boy dies. She grabbed her son and pulled him tightly against her chest. She quietly pleaded with him to quiet. He buried his face in her coat as the old woman moaned in pain. Ahead, slowly, Von Dusen ordered. The driver restarted the half-track and now it crawled along the road. The spotlight swept back and forth, searching for any sign of life, but there was nothing to see. After a short distance, Von Dusen ordered the driver to speed up. Perhaps you saw an animal, Sergeant, said Von Dusen, or maybe the shadows are playing tricks on your eyes. My Major, I think I saw... He did not get a chance to finish. Both of the front tires on the back's half-track exploded with a loud bang. The vehicle swerved, tossing the men about. The driver fought for control and lost it as the half-track careened off the road and into the field. It skidded to a stop and began to sink into the muddy ground. And that's the end of Chapter 16, and we will be back with Chapter 17 tomorrow. Take care, everyone.